your blessings and run it up. Nowadays, nothing really is ice. Only one of me and nobody's like me. Phone ringing and I tell him it's ice. I got wifey on bling and she freeze. Photo, please, no photos. Jeez, no, please, no photos.
Boom. We're live, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, we have a fantastic episode for you again today because we are in a screaming bull market and we're seeing green as if we were out in the jungle. And one of the most exciting parts about this is not just the potential and the gains, but it's the evolution of the technology. I'm excited to share some of my thoughts around the altruism as I did in my previous video yesterday while we were at the beach. But let's dive in and take a look at the charts. And so stick around to the end of the episode because I'm going to riff and rant for all the private bear members about a few new ideas that we'll be adding here in the next while. So if we dive in, let's make sure Dio knows how to press record. Yeah, okay, hey, look at that. We're going to dive in. We're going to turn the mic. We're going to turn the camera this way. Okay, Ethereum. So I'm actually starting with Ethereum today, not Bitcoin, because Ethereum was the trade that we've been making in the private group, or not trade I was making in the private group and sharing with you my process. Now again, what we're trying to do here is build confidence so that you guys know where you are in the markets. I've said this many times before, and the quote by myself, I'm quoting myself here, is that it's better to know where you are in the markets than be in the markets often. Once you know where you are, you can decide where you want to be in the markets. And I think that's an extremely important thing. Most people that show up to this sector, they're probably showing up because of the potential and the gains that you can make, multiple X increases in price. But ultimately there's a great tech evolution that's taking place right now, and we don't want to overlook that. But let's focus on where most people make the mistake. So most people make the mistake of buying like Ethereum at the top when they start to see the vision of it as all the hype's building up, and then you start what's called a distribution phase, this green section here. Now this is a buying climax. You have a very hypodermic top, it's run up by very thin volume, and a lot of it becomes almost all sell pressure on the way down. Now for multiple months afterwards, you go through what's known as distribution, which is this fall down to your primary selling climax. And this is what we're interested in because this starts the process of what we are studying called accumulation. And that means that something like Ethereum, which is a very valuable and very interesting technological evolution of what we can do in the blockchain space, the people that recognize that start to go through a process of buying consistently and buying often in very large amounts. So this accumulation is important because if you bought at the top, like most retail investors do, most people do the first time they get here, because that's when all the hype around the technology has been growing and why they're watching new videos and they're learning and studying. But ultimately they've made the wrong choice on the trading range. So what we try to do here is identify these trading ranges and these potentials. So since about May, June, March, those months when the pandemic started, we've been watching this area called what's known as the spring. So this spring is very important because it represents usually ultimate fear in the markets. And that's pretty much the time when the pandemic hit. So everybody was readjusting assets, but the people that had a lot of money, they didn't. They just kept acquiring. So you see this really big supply check because everyone gets scared and you see a dump of supply. And then from there, once it gets accumulated, you start the process of what's known as like building of strength, or basically we have a rising price through diminished supply. So the demand at that moment is now overtaking the supply because all the supply had been chewed up by the whales or by the larger interests that had been buying over the previous year, while smaller hands were shaken out in the middle of something like a pandemic. So ultimately what we're doing is we're technically analyzing human nature, not so much the price of the asset. Because again, we have to remember that an asset's values are kind of a hallucinatory effect. Like there's no real reason to say X painting is worth X dollars, but they sell for hundreds of millions. I believe Basquiat's was the most expensive painting ever sold in the United States for something like 110 million to Kasu, the guy who bought the flight to the moon for the first time, the first private flight to the moon. So we know that a value of something is kind of interchangeable dependent upon the person who's perceiving that value and what it is to them at that moment. So in general, when we're looking at these depressed assets in the springtime, the fear, that's the best time to start accumulation. And then we followed the market all the way through. So any of you that are in the private bear den or private newsletter, show the newsletter, join the private newsletter. We've been watching this growing accumulation range, and then here was a very important part. So here we had been sitting between August and October in our final phases of phase E. So this is phase E, all the fun stuff starts. And that's where Bitcoin is too. So phase E is categorized by a sign of strength and then a backup phase before a much higher continued breakout. And quite often, actually, a larger SOS and LPS continuation pattern into the future. So Ethereum will go up, it will come back down, and it will go up, and then come back down, and then might go up one more big last time. So right now what we're trying to do is, this is the early stage entry. So we sent out a private newsletter recognizing this first SOS, and the second newsletter recognizing the second SOS around 380 to 404 is basically where I got my entry, somewhere around this volume profile. It was here, you would remember from the newsletter if you were in there. So this secondary SOS and then a bigger LPS phase took place. So we've had this kind of blowout top. Now Ethereum could actually go maybe to $715 here. So I'm watching my entry quite closely. I closed out everything yesterday, was in profit. I took that position. I was hoping to get like a 6x return out of it almost, but I think overall it was around a 2.5 for the whole duration. Again, they measured weird, but in terms of Bitcoin, it was around two times what I put in, which is great because it was about a 60% move. So I averaged around twice what the move was. If leverage 10x, bring it down so it's not so dangerous. Just buy little bits and accumulate near the bottom of those LPS ranges, play safely. Anyways, the point of this is we could still go higher because we're looking at an accumulation range. So again, we want to know where we are in the market. So we know where we are in the market at a large scale right now, which is we are in a bull market. So we should ultimately be wanting to lean towards bullish scenarios in almost everything that we're looking at. Now the downside even then becomes less as well, because we know that the bullish scenario can take place and you can be a bit more relaxed with the potential of your trade depending on where you are, or your entry and your exit. You know, again, remembering a lot of people show up to this space because of the financial rewards. Knowing where to enter, or at least where you are in the markets, is extremely valuable. So as we go to the smaller time frames, this is where we can see that we might actually be starting a new accumulation range. So for everyone that's out there that's studying with us right now, whether you're in the private bear den or not, let's take a look at Ethereum. Okay, well, where are we in this trade? So in the 15-minute, we can see this horizontal trading range. This is usually what we're always looking for. And then here, the more I zoom in, you can see at least on the 15-minute, the point of control is going to move to the center. So here the point of control, this pink line, is right through the center. So we have this nice accumulation range taking place. And often what we look for is this kind of getting stuck below the creek, maybe with even a spring down like this, and then a break above. So if we were to imagine over the next 24 hours that we're going to have some type of supply test, here, where this would be a potential entry. Now the downside is you don't want to enter here. You want to wait, right? So I had one of the private members ask me this, like, oh, well, what's Ethereum doing? Well, we don't know yet. So one of the downsides to reaccumulation, which is what we're probably looking at here, is that it can very easily turn into distribution. So say we got a spike that came down and then closed below like this and had a lower high, and we could drop much lower, right? Now, again, we're leaning toward the bullish scenario, so what we're looking for is likely a reaccumulation pattern, maybe a spike down below, a break above the point of control again, and then this area becomes where I would be entering to continue to go long at a higher leverage position, effectively. So again, none of this is trading advice, but understanding the fundamental value of where you are on the market can drastically change your success level, because you can confidently know, well, A, we're in a bull market in the long term, so you could pretty much just be buying and accumulating, and that's a pretty good strategy, maybe for the next 6 to 18 months, 9 to 18 months, something like this. But on the short term, if you're playing with more of the exotics, you're interested in not just having Bitcoin, but outpacing it like a hedge fund might do or something like this, this becomes one of the ways that is fun to play with. So if you're new to leverage or if you're new to trading, well, first off, worry about investing. Just pull the trigger, buy small amounts, do it frequently, because we're in a bull market. You will be successful just doing something simple like that. If you're more interested in the advanced, like trading, it's kind of like you could consider it an enjoyable thing to do. I like this, trying to understand human nature through technical analysis. I think it's a really interesting concept. So this is what I suspect. I'll leave this drawn up here for our next episodes. Again, the timing here could be any number of things. But again, so we'll draw, the green is our bullish trading range, and then we'll draw in with red our bearish trading range. So again, remember, I am already leaning bullish because it's very likely it is. And then look, they'll overlap too, and that's what gets disturbing about the this range here, because it goes like that. Something if this were to be distribution at the top here, we won't know yet, but this trading range that's forming will be super important. So I'm going to spend most of the time on Ethereum at this moment. I'm really excited about Ethereum. I made a tweet yesterday saying I'm euphoric about Ethereum. We should keep an eye on it because it might be near a top. So here's something else that's really interesting I wanted to point out. So let's look at, again, you want to try to know, where am I in the market? That's what we're doing here through the human nature of supply and demand. So you can see that we've actually been rising through this rather nice channel here to get to this point. So once this channel kind of broke sideways, it started a new trading range, and that was important. But let's take a look at this trading range, and let's try to speculate. So for those of you that know or have been studying, look at this volume spike here. This represents a spring of supply test and a movement into a new potential trading range. Now, what's interesting here is that we got it's moving into a new channel effectively. So here we can see this massive amount of supply come in, right? This was the sign of weakness. But this is why these reaccumulation patterns can appear dangerous, because you do have this sign of weakness here, this big supply coming in, and then this price check on the trading range. And that, again, happens in both distribution and reaccumulation. So we can't defer yet which one it is, but ultimately, if we were to suspect that this is the start of an LPS and a backup phase outside of this smaller trading range, this ascending channel could be very bullish for us. So it might be that it just breaks out to the top side of this channel, and then goes maybe upwards of $720. So there's a lot of upside potential still here, but I'm going to be waiting with my trade until I see more clear evidence about what it's doing on either direction here, because right now I don't know, and we just had a lot of like a nice run of profits. I'm not going to risk it up here yet until this trading range gives me a new clear idea. As soon as we see a break above, like if let's clean this up a little, boom, 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 boom. Okay, we'll leave it like that. So if we were to break across the creek, so again, you would need to be studying to know what I'm talking about here, I guess, but if we break across this creek, and it's probably there with the moving averages, you can probably see it if we put the bear claw on there. Yeah, this kind of band, this ribbon that would come across and down here, that's what we're looking for, and we're looking for probably to stay above the 200 on the 15-minute. So effectively, again, the reason why this can be very valuable is that you can apply this same methodology from a big time frame in a smaller time frame. So ultimately, it's really valuable to know that we are in a bull market. We entered a bull market in March. So you should be sticking around. I don't suggest trading unless you're doing it in small amounts to learn. It can be very costly to learn, so you want to try to limit your cost understanding. That's why we do these episodes and why I continue to try to help people understand where they are in the market. Another interesting thing here we're looking at is maybe this potential of, again, for those of you that study with us, you will have hopefully read a reminiscence of a successful stock operator, a story of Jesse Livermore. And if you type in Jesse Livermore, I guess it was like a speculative chart on Google, you will find something very specific in the image section. And it is this rising cylinder with a widening mouth, is what he calls it, of accumulation, and then a big breakout. Now, we've seen this multiple times before when we've looked at Link, when we've looked at Bitcoin, when we've looked at Ethereum. You see multiple smaller SOSs and LPSs that give you the chance to lean into. This is where buy the dip in a bull market comes from. Buying the dip in a bear market is stupid. You should wait until the selling climax is over. You can be patient. It should be out of your position technically if you're any good at trading at that moment. But anyways, or investing even, I would suspect. But anyways, that's for another topic. But here, this speculative rising cylinder we've seen before. And for those of you, again, that study with us, yeah, you will know what we're talking about. But look where this could take us. So we already have points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. right? So we're up to 5. So if we look where we are, or sorry, I guess which they count as 6. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why am I? What did I do wrong here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Jesus. So we're on count 6. Yeah, that makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what we drew up to. So we've got our 0.1 here, 2 here, 3, 4, 5, 6. Very simple. And it's the next. So this is why, again, I'm not trying to target too much higher than maybe 680, 720 for this final kind of blowout top. And again, look how much volume is coming in right now. That looks almost like definitive stopping action to me. So I'm quite weary about holding on to that long position. That's why I closed out, and I'm just waiting to see what this does. We get maybe a retest of 425 for this cylindrical breakout. And again, remember that you could see, this is the thing that's kind of difficult too, is let's hypothesize and say we're actually wrong. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or wait, hold on. So you've got 1, 2, 3. See, it's difficult. Yeah, you can't really. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe something like that, right? So we could be a step behind, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like we have this fairly nice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I do suspect that we'll. I don't suspect anything, but be on the lookout for this. Okay. This could be a very powerful movement, and this would bring us into those much higher regression lines that we have been charting into Ethereum's price over the next, let's say, 9 to 18 months, as I've said. So again, if we go to the daily, we look at this big long regression line. This would be a price movement upwards of multiple thousands of dollars. So 2,800 I have on my first regression line that keeps a parallel with all the other regression lines. This is kind of an abstraction, but it's based off fractals too, where you get the 1, 2, 3, 5 count, based off this kind of SOS, LPS, and then bam, final kind of blowout. And they've charted it here too. You can find multiple. Tyler Jenks' version of it was kind of similar with this hyperwave theory. Really, really interesting stuff, guys. So keep an eye on that. We're just at the very beginning of a bull market. Now's a good time to be in the market. We've said that multiple times. Bitcoin, I made a funny post on Twitter saying, will Ethereum see all-time highs before Bitcoin, kind of jokingly. Because, in my world, I know I'm not smart enough to think that I know what's going to happen, because anything could happen. So I try to imagine that anything could happen. And what would be a scenario in which that outcome would happen. Even though I don't believe the world is flat, I like to pretend to give myself the opportunity to find out if maybe I missed something. Anyways, the point of this is that ask questions. It's smart, even if you think the answer is obvious. So with Ethereum here, on Bitcoin on the daily, you can see again this buying climax followed by a selling climax, long accumulation box, and then what became our SOS. Now we're looking for a backup phase, right? So maybe when our first targets were 17,000, and now that we've gotten to this 19,000, it's like, okay, well, maybe it wants to break past all-time highs for the SOS. This is a crazy market, and either way, we're still measuring human emotion. Even though we've got a lot more code in here now. It's people wrote the code. They seem to be intimately intertwined, right? That's why I think social media is probably so addicting, is because people build things that they like and that they want. Anyways, the point of this is, we could have a further breakout of this SOS, but the backup phase always occurs. And if it doesn't, this would represent a very unhealthy bull market. And I'm not sure it would be sustained per se. So again, we're just going to rush to $100,000. Now, I'm suspecting the backup phase will come here. Now, how high or how low, I guess, or how high, maybe is a good way to put it. What we would want to do is take a look at the 1 week here, and try to imagine that it's somewhere around the 21-week moving average, because that would represent a healthy market to me. And I would like to see that for that healthy market feeling, which would mean a return at that point of maybe like $13,000. And then a big new trading range like this, a big one last supply check, and then kaboom! Bitcoin's going to explode, because you're going to see these multiple SOSs. And I bet you, I haven't done this yet, but let's try to take a look and see if we can get some of our, let's see if we can get some of this potential viewpoint out of here as well. Can we see one of these cylinders that's been growing through Bitcoin? And almost here. Yeah. Now I don't want to force my vision too much, right? I mean, let's imagine we're using that speculative chart from Jesse Livermore. I don't want to force it too much, but we'll just go here and create a little bit more conjecture. Maybe it's even easier to see on the weekly. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. So this is interesting to me, and this is what we would suspect, that we would see a big SOS and an LPS. We saw it with Link. Maybe I'll even go over that to finish the video off for those of you. You know, maybe this is even a wider, kind of like a wider cylinder, something like this. So you try to get both those tops in there. So again, you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll draw it in. We got a 1, 2, 3, 4. What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think we're up at the top of the cylinder top here. Again, the bottom of this, maybe we've got, again, maybe 15,000, 13,000. So we're going to want to keep an eye on this to see, was Jesse Livermore right? He's got a few variations of this drawn up, and we've seen it a few times, and we know that the accumulation cylinder can look very similar on multiple areas. Now, I've got this, don't short. This is nothing to be shorting right now, just in case you didn't know. So I actually, you know, guys, take a look at this. This is a great thing to read over. It's also the volume and price indications as well too. So very, very helpful stuff. We'll keep it that. It was a long video. I'll go over Chainlink very briefly because I do want to show this process. It was in Link versus Bitcoin's price breakouts. We can probably find it in USDT here as well. Yeah, it was. So when Link first started, it looked much better in Bitcoin. Like the real accumulation of Link took place when Bitcoin was. Now more and more we've been charting, it seems, the US dollar, because of leverage most likely and perpetuals and all these derivatives around the dollar being a stable coin basically in people's minds, which is ridiculous to me that we have them, because now it has the hidden risk of the dollar, but in this system. Anyways, this is a topic for another discussion. But here with Link, on this final period here, you had these multiple SOSs and LPSs before the final breakout occurred. And I think this is imperative because I believe this is what we're going to see with both Bitcoin and Ethereum effectively. You have these big SOSs and LPS returns. And again, now let's hypothesize, do we have that rising cylinder that we had been watching? We could argue that it's there. Something like this, right? Although the count looks a little off, that's for sure. Yeah, you could, I don't know. So you don't want to try to shove things to fit your hypothesis either. That's never like a good idea, but just because, I'm not trying to give Jesse Livermore like props here. I'm just saying that after these backup phases, we've seen these really hard supply tests on the return side as well. Now Bitcoin might not have as big of a return of the supply right now. Obviously it's being accumulated by people that have a lot of money, much bigger funds and firms and businesses, people wised up to the scarcity asset model. So I do suspect that we're still going to witness something similar because human nature is still involved here. Multiple SOSs and LPSs, which is exciting because this is the bull market, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you like this content, give us a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the little bell so that way anytime we make videos, you guys will be notified. We can help keep you calm, relaxed, and level-headed while trying to interpret where we are and what's going on. I wanted to let you guys in on a little bit of a fun thing too. I was talking about how Q4 and Q1 would represent kind of a new part 2 deep dive DeFi. So I've got a few fun podcasts. We've got D-Hedge going live tomorrow, so keep an eye on that one. I wanted to give a shout out to Bradley Mills or Miles. Oh no, I forgot. Bradley, I forgot. I'm sorry. Miles Mills, Bradley Mills. I'm going with that one for now. Bradley from Roll, and they helped create the Bear token, the social money reward token that we use. So you can go to Uniswap, and if you type in Bear specifically, you will see, oh look, there's Arcane Bear. You can click on that. You can trade, or don't add liquidity, don't do those things. But if you wanted, for the, I don't know, let's say 2 more people, because we've already done like 5 or 6, and it takes more work on our side. But anyways, because it's a rewards token, this is how you get 50% discount. For 2 people right now that want to buy a year membership to the Bear Den, you can use Bear. And to do that, because you might need help, you can email info@arcanebear.com, and our wonderful support gentleman Lindley will help take care of you. He's fantastic. So thank you guys. We'll leave it at that. I think it's fantastic. This I love experimenting with this tech, and you know, like in the private Discord channel, when we're looking at here, because Bitcoin went up, we're like, hey, we're giving some Bear away, and anyways, it's fun. It's fun. I love the rewards token. Some of you guys are almost like up to being able to pay for part of a membership just because you've been in the den already. It's fantastic. I love seeing this. I love these kind of social community experiments. So thank you guys for joining along on this in the ride with Arcane Bear, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.